Have you ever given your all to someone, your time, your energy, your trust, only to watch them walk away like it meant nothing? Why do some friendships last through storms while others fall apart at the first drop of rain? And how can we build relationships that are rooted not just in convenience, but in something deeper? Loyalty, respect, and mutual growth. Today, we dive into one of the most powerful forces in human interaction, the law of reciprocity. It's not just a strategy, it's a principle of life, deeply connected to both Stoic philosophy and modern success. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're on a mission to grow, evolve, and master the art of living powerfully and purposefully. 1. The silent contract. What reciprocity really means. Reciprocity is not about keeping score. It's about balance, about the quiet understanding that when you pour into others, something comes back eventually. This return might not be immediate, nor will it always come from the person you gave to, but the principle holds. The energy you give to the world finds its way back. The Stoics understood this as a function of cosmic order, what they called the logos. To them, the universe operated with a certain harmony, and part of that harmony was built on reciprocity, not as a tit-for-tat exchange, but as a natural rhythm of give and take. The Stoics believed that nature itself is reciprocal. The sun gives light, the earth gives food. We take, we give, and the cycle continues. Nothing in nature hoards endlessly. Even a tree that grows fruit must shed it. Rivers flow to oceans, seasons return. The idea here is that to live in accordance with nature, as Stoicism urges, we must also adopt this flow. We are not separate from this cycle. When we give generously, thoughtfully, and without manipulation, we're not being naive. We're aligning with the very structure of the universe. But here's the truth. Many people mistake reciprocity for manipulation. They give not out of character, but out of expectation. That's not power, it's emotional gambling. It turns giving into a silent transaction where the receipt is held tightly waiting to be stamped by the other's gratitude. This kind of giving is dangerous because it sets up invisible contracts the other person never signed. When the return doesn't come, when appreciation is delayed or denied, resentment brews. That's not Stoicism. That's ego masquerading as virtue. Real reciprocity happens when you give because it's who you are, not because of what you'll get. But paradoxically, those who give from strength often receive the most in return. Why? Because genuine generosity builds trust. It creates a gravitational field that pulls people in. When your giving isn't conditional, it's remembered. People are drawn to authenticity in a world full of tactics. Stoicism teaches us to anchor our actions in character, not outcomes. Give because you embody virtue, not because you expect applause. This isn't just philosophy. It's seen in strong friendships, resilient marriages, and thriving business partnerships. Where energy is matched, respect flows, and loyalty is earned. These relationships thrive, not because each side is counting, but because both sides are contributing. The silent contract of reciprocity doesn't require enforcement. It self-sustains through mutual investment, shared values, and unspoken trust. That's the kind of wealth Stoics would admire. Not the wealth of things, but the richness of connection rooted in shared strength. 2. Friendships that last. The energy exchange principle. Friendship is one of life's most beautiful investments, but only when both people are adding value, not just draining each other. Too often, people confuse proximity with connection. Just because someone is around doesn't mean they're contributing to your life. Energy doesn't lie. If every interaction leaves you depleted rather than replenished, it's time to question the balance. The Stoics believed in meaningful bonds, in choosing companions who reflect our virtues and challenge our vices, not those who exploit our kindness. You can't keep pouring into people who only show up when they're thirsty. Reciprocity means you care for them and they care for you, not just when it's convenient. If someone's presence in your life is solely based on their needs, not mutual growth, then that's not friendship, it's dependency. Real friendship is mutual recognition. It's knowing that your struggles matter to them, not just your victories. The Stoics advise choosing friends not for their usefulness, but for their goodness, their ability to stand beside you with integrity, not just stand in your shadow when the light is good. If your presence in someone's life constantly lifts them, but they vanish when you need lifting, that's not a friend, it's a transaction. One-sided friendships breed exhaustion. When you're the counselor, the cheerleader, the fixer, and they're never there when your storm comes, what you have isn't a relationship, it's emotional outsourcing. Stoicism reminds us to be generous, yes, but also discerning. Not every soul deserves access to your time, energy, or emotional bandwidth. Stoic wisdom teaches us to be cautious with where we spend our time and spirit. Ask yourself, do they sharpen you or do they silence you? Epictetus said, "We become like those we associate with." If someone consistently leaves you feeling less understood, less supported, less inspired, that's your signal. Protect your peace as you would your health. The people you let into your inner circle should add to your clarity, not your confusion. True friendship feels like this. They remember your words, respect your effort, and match your energy without being asked. You don't have to chase them to care, remind them to check in, or beg them to show up. When reciprocity is real, it flows naturally. There's no performance, no calculation, just a steady rhythm of give and take, rooted in care. That's the energy exchange principle. It's not selfish to want that. It's stoic to recognize the value of balanced bonds. 3. Business and success, the currency of value. In business, reciprocity isn't emotional, it's strategic. You offer value, solve problems, open doors, and that builds a bridge of trust. The most successful professionals understand that giving value is a long-term investment. They don't just show up when there's something to gain. They build a reputation for consistency, helpfulness, and excellence. The Stoics might not have run corporations, but they understood the importance of contribution, responsibility, and playing one's role in the grand symphony of life. In modern terms, that's value creation. You don't sell, you serve, and because of that, people come back, not just for your product, but for the integrity behind it. A Stoic entrepreneur doesn't manipulate, they inform. They don't corner the market, they raise its standard. Serving first means you're putting your principles ahead of your profit, and paradoxically, that's exactly what builds sustainable success. The market remembers character, people talk, and in a world flooded with noise, authentic service stands out like a signal. The most successful people in any field understand this principle. The more you give without keeping score, the more the world opens to you. Generosity in business isn't naivety, it's leverage. Not every good deed pays off immediately, but it builds something far more valuable than money: reputation. And reputation in any field is currency. The Stoics believed that fortune was outside our control, but virtue was not. When you lead with virtue, the rewards follow. Not always how you expect, but always when you're ready. Networking is not about who you know. It's about who remembers you with gratitude. That only happens when you show up with authenticity. People remember how you made them feel. Did you make their job easier? Did you elevate the room?
Did you solve problems instead of creating them? The Stoic approach is to be indifferent to flattery and focused on excellence. You don't need to boast if your results speak louder than your words. Let your work be your marketing. Even Marcus Aurelius wrote about the value of working in harmony, of contributing to the whole. And in today's world, value is the new loyalty. Businesses that thrive are those that don't just transact, they transform. They turn customers into communities and services into solutions. Stoicism calls us to rise above ego, above greed, and operate from a place of virtue. In doing so, we build not just success, but significance. And in the end, that's the kind of legacy that outlives us.
4. Love without games. Giving without losing yourself. Love is the purest form of reciprocity, but also the most easily abused. Because when emotions run deep, we often forget our boundaries. Love, in its truest sense, is supposed to be an act of mutual recognition, where both individuals see each other as worthy, equal, and whole. But in practice, love often turns into a proving ground, a place where one gives endlessly while the other simply receives. The imbalance doesn't always appear instantly. It sneaks in under the cover of emotional intensity, masked as devotion or sacrifice. One person becomes the caretaker, the fixer, the forgiver, while the other becomes complacent. When this happens, it's not love that's functioning anymore. It's dependency pretending to be connection. True love doesn't demand, it offers. It shows up without being begged. It gives without keeping receipts. Real love is voluntary. It's never rooted in manipulation or guilt. The healthiest forms of love exist in freedom, a freedom to express, to support, and to grow without pressure or tally marks. There's no scoreboard in authentic connection. You don't love someone to gain leverage. You love because it is an act aligned with your virtue, your nature, and your values. A Stoic understands that love isn't a currency to be spent strategically. It is a state of being to be lived generously. However, the moment your presence becomes an obligation instead of a gift, the reciprocity has been broken. But reciprocity in love must never cost you your self-respect. When you give all of yourself to someone who gives nothing back, that's not love, it's emotional debt. Self-respect is the cornerstone of meaningful relationships. Without it, we fall into the trap of constantly overextending ourselves just to maintain a connection that no longer serves our dignity. Giving from a place of love is noble, but giving past the point of depletion, hoping it will transform someone's indifference to affection, is self-betrayal. Love becomes a burden when it's one-sided. When all your energy goes into trying to earn the affection of someone emotionally unavailable, it's not love you're receiving, it's silence, avoidance, and neglect wrapped in excuses. A Stoic doesn't love with conditions, but they do love with clarity. They give freely, but never foolishly. The Stoic heart is generous, but it is also wise. It recognizes that love without wisdom becomes attachment. You can love deeply without surrendering your judgment. You can support others without enabling their dysfunction. Loving clearly means understanding the nature of the bond, asking yourself, is this love uplifting or is it draining? Stoics are not cold, they are clear, and clarity is what keeps love from turning into servitude. When you love with awareness, you preserve your center even as you open your heart. If they stop appreciating your presence, stop handing them your peace. Love should elevate you both, not exhaust you. You're not meant to be a source of endless comfort to someone who takes you for granted. You are not a reservoir for someone else's inconsistency. When love begins to extract more than it enriches, you must pause.
Appreciation is the natural response to genuine love. If your presence is met with indifference or contempt, then your peace is at risk. The Stoic doesn't chase love, they become love and let it flow where it's honored. You walk away, not because you're bitter, but because you're awake. Love should be a shared flight, not a one-sided climb.
Number 5. Knowing when to stop giving. The wisdom of detachment. Here's the hard part about reciprocity. Sometimes you have to stop giving, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Ending the pattern of overgiving can feel like betrayal, especially if you've built your identity around being the reliable one or the peacemaker. But there comes a moment when continuing to give isn't generosity anymore, it's self-neglect. Reciprocity isn't just about fairness, it's about mutual presence. When the exchange stops being mutual, your giving becomes a slow erosion of your worth. The Stoic doesn't stop giving because they're angry. They stop because wisdom tells them that energy spent without return is energy lost to futility. If you're always the one reaching out, always the one fixing things, always the one making excuses for their silence, you've become your own captor. There's a silent tyranny in relationships where one person assumes all the emotional labor. If you find yourself constantly justifying someone else's absence, silence, or disregard, then you are no longer in a partnership. You are in an emotional loop that benefits only one party. And, ironically, the more you do to sustain it, the more invisible you become. The harsh truth is this: rescuing people who don't want to change becomes your own prison. A Stoic sets themselves free not by forcing change in others, but by walking away from cycles that repeat without resolution. Reciprocity teaches us not just how to give, but when to stop. When to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Your energy is not limitless. Your time, your attention, your compassion, they are resources. And just as a wise investor knows when to pull out of a failing venture, the Stoic knows when their love is falling into a void. There is dignity in restraint. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. When you realize that your efforts aren't being matched, that your kindness is being consumed without care, you must step back, not out of resentment, but because your soul deserves better soil to root itself in. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for people who treat your loyalty like a doormat. Too many confuse detachment with coldness, but detachment isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of boundaries. You can still love someone and recognize that they are not healthy for you. You can care deeply while also choosing to protect your peace. Detachment allows you to see the relationship clearly without the fog of hope or guilt. When your loyalty becomes a liability, it is no longer a virtue, it is a chain. And the Stoic breaks that chain not with anger, but with understanding. The Stoic path is a balanced path. You give where it's returned, you withdraw where it's wasted. That's not cold, that's clarity. Balance is the essence of Stoic love and friendship. It's not about perfect equality at every moment, but about mutual investment in the relationship's growth. Giving becomes meaningful when it's reciprocated, when there is movement in both directions. A Stoic doesn't withdraw out of pettiness, but out of principle. They understand that staying too long in a place where they're not valued corrodes the self. Clarity empowers departure. It says, I love you, but I love me too. And that is the highest wisdom, loving with open hands, not chained wrists. If you want loyal relationships, in friendship, love, or business, you must first become a loyal person, one who gives from strength, not weakness. Reciprocity is not a rule, it's a rhythm. And when you move with it, life becomes richer, relationships become deeper, and self-respect becomes unshakable. Don't chase people. Don't force connections. Be so valuable that loyalty is the only logical response. If this message resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because the more we grow together, the more powerful we all become. And remember this, give boldly, but never blindly. The world may not always return the favor, but your peace is the reward.